Welcome. My name is Cherie Forsyth. I'm a peak performance coach and a bereavement coach as well. And today we're doing this lovely interview. Welcome Cherie Redecker, who's a professional cyclist. And because September worldwide is Self-Care Month, what we're speaking about today is self-compassion. And is there a place for self-compassion when you are competing on the international stage? So welcome, Cherie. Always lovely to chat to you.
Hi, Cherie. Good to be back.
Okay, so I think I want to start by just saying self-compassion is something that most people find very, very difficult to do. We will treat our friends with compassion, we'll treat our family with compassion, but when it comes to ourselves, we're very, very hard on ourselves. And particularly because in the world of athletics, athletes are seen to be particularly driven, which almost counteracts any place that you can give self-compassion. So I want to start, Cherie, by asking whether you've always treated yourself with self-compassion or whether this is something new for you.
Looking back, I think I have definitely treated myself with self-compassion in areas, but maybe over the last few years since I've got more serious and more competitive, I've treated myself with less self-compassion and I've been more critical, and I've really been hard on myself, and I've kind of taken myself down this negative spiral thinking, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm just not there, and why am I not racing harder? I need to do this and I need to do that. And it's actually just been very negative and not like I haven't looked at it with compassion and be like, okay, well, this went wrong. Why did it go wrong? It's just like, oh, I need to improve this and I need to go here. And yeah, it's been, I think, a bit challenging, and maybe I've taken myself too much down at the negative spiral, but it's definitely back on the upward trend.
Okay, so when you, after a race, if you do beat yourself up, how does that leave you feeling for the next few days of training and for the next races?
Yeah, usually when I'm beating myself up, it's like I'm just feeling not as motivated, a bit negative, and it's just this of like, oh, but why am I not good enough? Why can't I reach there? And it's emphasizing way too much on the what ifs and negatives, and it's not really helped motivating me getting out of that rut that I'm creating for myself. So learning to be able to just treat myself with a bit more compassion after a race has been a lot more uplifting for me, and I've been able to just have this sense of lightness afterwards. So instead of doing that beating up motivation, it's like giving myself the self-compassion and being like, okay, well, let's look at realistically, why didn't it go well? Okay, that was the situation that it didn't. How can I improve it? And I just look at it with more of a positive mindset. And it's amazing going into the next race and going into training. I'm just feeling so much more motivated to actually want to improve more. And it just gives so much more meaning to my training and to my racing when I just be a bit more kind to myself.
I think what you're saying there, research bears out that same thing, in that they've done lots of research on like CEOs of companies who beat themselves up and beat the whole team up, and how productive are they compared with CEOs who are treating themselves with self-compassion, and they're treating their teams with compassion as well. One of the major parts of that is we all are human. We are going to make mistakes. So let's make them, because that's part of who we are, but let's see what we can learn from them. And the CEOs who treat themselves and their teams with compassion, their productivity is much, much better than those that beat themselves up. So you are right in line with all the research that's happening.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that is. It's just as well with like when I look at it and I'll be like, how can I be compassionate to friends when they do bad in a race, and I can be like really caring to them, but then for myself to do bad in a race, I'm just so much more like hard and critical, and I'm like, well, I really need to treat myself how I treat my friends.
Exactly. On the button. Absolutely on the button. For those of the viewers who are wanting to know more about self-compassion, the real guru about self-compassion is Dr. Kristen Neff. That's Kristen with a K and N-E-F-F is her surname. Go and have a look at her. She's got lots of TED Talks and videos and books, and go and be able to find out more about self-compassion and harness it, so that in fact, when you have made a mistake, you're going to treat yourself gently and kindly instead of beating yourself up. So immediately you're in a much more positive state. So, Cherie, in the world that you live in, which is highly competitive, is there a place for self-compassion?
I definitely think there is. I think a lot of people have this misconception that with being a professional athlete or even a professional businessman, you need to just be hard, and you need to just have this like toughness about you that you can't give up, and you can't like be soft on yourself, because then you're showing weakness. Like when you rather, like we spoke earlier, when you show that self-compassion to yourself, you're actually more likely to make that improvement, and you're more motivated and positive towards the area where you need to work on. So I definitely think it is like, maybe you might think, oh, I'm being too soft on myself, but meanwhile it's actually just being realistic and motivating yourself more in a kind approach, that actually a lasting effect compared to the short-term being hard on yourself.
So in actual, what you're saying is, when you treat yourself with self-compassion, you're encouraging yourself rather than breaking yourself down. Is that kind of what you say?
Yeah. So definitely on the point.
Okay. So I want to ask you if you can think of maybe some examples of when you have treated yourself with self-compassion.
Well, recent scenario is after the corona restrictions were lifted a bit and races were able to start in Europe. The first race back, I was kind of happy with like how it went when I was in the moment, but straight after the race, I think one of the first things I said to Heike was like, I could have gone. And then I started like getting myself into that, maybe that negative mindset and those negative thoughts, and like, oh, why can't I just push myself harder? Why am I constantly feeling like I'm just not good enough? And I've done all the training. And then really cool is that like the stop sign that we've been working on a lot like came up, and I'm just like, wait a minute, this is just getting myself into that negative mindset.
Yeah.
I really be more compassionate with myself and be like, listen, I feel like I could have gone harder, but why? And just look at it more realistic and just with a kind of approach, and be like, okay, this went wrong, that went wrong. I was stuck in traffic traveling to the race. We only could practice on the day, and I was on my feet the whole week leading up to the race. And I'm like, okay, well, that was the issue. Going on to the next race, I need to make sure I have the better recovery, and my training is going to go better. And it was just, when I was able to just look at it really realistically and be like self-compassionate, I was so much more motivated and liked this feeling of being like, oh, cool, I can't wait for the next race. And Heiko and I sat down and was like, oh, when's the next race? And we saw there was one in Czech Republic. So it's like, okay, we're definitely doing that. And like for me, that race that I ended up doing after the first one was such a breakthrough. Like, yes, it maybe wasn't the outcome I wanted, but it was in the right direction I wanted to go. And that just, with that self from the first race, fueled the next race. And it just kept going on a positive spiral. And since then I've been able to stop more and become more present when going into that negative mindset. So like just the self-compassion helps me be more present and it helps me motivate for what I need to do.
So I know you've got a very busy racing schedule coming up shortly.
Yeah.
What kind of role is self-compassion going to play in the fact that you've got like a race with a day free and then another race and a day free? So it's going to be very much the races on top of each other. How are you planning on bringing self-compassion into what's going to be a very, very busy racing schedule?
Yeah. So I think it's just going into the race with just this goal and this vision of what I want to complete, and race, make sure I have the correct nutrition, I stretch and roll and recover, put my feet up, and make sure I mentally prepare for the next race. So it's going to be a lot of just up and just that focus on being like, okay, I've done this race. If it didn't go well, I need to just look at it critically, but at the same time with love, and be like, okay, these are the situations. I've got another 3 races coming up that I can actually improve on it. So in a way, it's a little bit exciting because it's like, yeah, if one race doesn't go well, then I've got the next race 2 days later or day later that I can improve on it. And I've just got to realize, like, it's not normal for cross country for us to have 2 races. Well, basically it's 4 races in 1 week in Novo Mesto, Czech Republic, but it's an opportunity to race again, and I just need to look at it with a positive mindset and just be like, cool, this is what's happening. It's going to be hard, it's not going to be easy, but I've got this.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that. So the question I want to ask next, Cherie, is if you treat yourself with compassion, can you maybe cut yourself too much slack so that you go easy on yourself, that you can use the self-compassion to like make excuses for the race that maybe didn't go so well? Can it actually affect your performance, be a way out? Or what do you think? I mean, are you getting what I'm trying to say?
It depends. If each race I've been like, oh no, like, I didn't do so well because the traveling was too much, and the next race I'm like, like I didn't get the traveling right. And if it keeps happening, it's like, maybe I should actually reevaluate this and see that this is not being compassionate. It's just being, I don't know what the word is. Maybe like, I think it's not actually related to being compassionate about yourself. It's just making an excuse about not doing what you need to do. Because there's being self-compassionate and also being disciplined. And you need to still have that hardness on yourself, in the sense to just keep that motivation, but not the hardness that pushes you, the hardness that motivates you, like just wanting you to not get into that rut. It's like a parent disciplining their child. They're not being hard on them because they don't love them. They're being hard on them because they love them. So it's finding that balance of not being too many excuses, but just more that one where you have that compassion in yourself to help for improvement, not for excuses.
No, absolutely. And so I think, that makes sense, because instead of like beating yourself up, you're going to accept that part of the human condition is that we are going to make mistakes, and therefore we need to learn from them. And so you're motivated to learn and apply them in the next race, rather than beating yourself up and going down into that negative spiral where we all, I'm not good enough. Why am I competing? What am I trying to prove? And that in itself would be a very negative place to race from, as opposed to with self-compassion, give yourself a bit of a break, lift yourself up a bit, and then you're raring to go the next time. So what are the benefits you feel when you treat yourself compassionately rather than beat yourself up? You've spoken a little bit about it. but I want to try and put it in a nutshell.
Basically, it's that sense of lightness and that motivated to keep going for the next goal, and like keep going for just that the vision that you have, and not getting too much into those negative thoughts. So like maybe let me just put it in one sentence, is that self-compassion is motivating, and it just gives me a lightness where I'm able to just be ready for a race and just give it my all, knowing that what I've done is the best I can do.
Okay, that's brilliant. That's beautifully put. So moving towards the end of the interview, are there certain areas in your life, Cherie, where you can exercise compassion and other areas where you can't? And likewise in cycling, is it the same kind of thing where sometimes you can be compassionate, but others you can't?
I think it's actually included everywhere in life. Like, I don't think you can separate it, whether it's in life or in cycling. Because I find when I don't treat myself with compassion and I do beat myself up, I'm not motivated to fix the problem. I tend to actually repeat and repeat and repeat the mistakes I keep making. But I find that compassion helps me actually move forward instead of moving backwards, no matter what I do.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it puts you, even though you have maybe not had the perfect race, you can say, okay, but what I'm going to take from what I've learned and I'm going to apply it to my next race. So therefore that's motivating and encouraging. Rather than when you beat yourself up, I'm assuming you kind of just ignore the problem until you repeat it the next time and the next time and the next time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I find it's like a lot of races where I have beaten myself up, I just haven't got out of that rut. Like I seem to have made it again and again. So
and then, Cherie, if you've beaten yourself up about a race, does that negativity ease into your normal life outside of cycling, or can you keep them separate?
I think they most times do actually get mixed together. There can be also scenarios where it's like, maybe I've done something wrong at home, or I've just not got it right and I'm just not getting it done again. And then I'm like, oh, I'm useless. I'm not good enough. Like, I just can't even get like my racing right. And now I can't even just get the simple task at home right. So it definitely links together with the situations. And I don't think I can separate them that much, because obviously when I'm upset about the cycling, then it fuels into my life. And I'm just, if a race hasn't gone well and I've beaten myself up about it, then the task that I do at home, I generally be like, oh, this is a confirmation, instead of being like kind on myself and just letting it and make those mistakes. Because we only human, and we want to be the best we can be, and we always want to improve, and we always want to be up there, but we can't always be up there. We need to know that like sometimes we need those dips. And when we give ourselves that compassion, it just helps us, when we're in those dips, it helps us to get back up there again, instead of going completely the opposite direction.
Absolutely. And I think for men, it's far easier to compartmentalize. So they might be able to keep their beating themselves up just for their cycling and separate it from their life, just because of the way men's brains work. But as women, we are very integrated, we're very holistic. And it's very, very difficult for us to not allow one thing to affect other areas of our life. So I think my final question, Cherie, to you is there anything else you want to say to maybe other beginner cyclists who are just starting on the international circuit, is there anything you would like to say to them about you, so that you are giving them the benefit of your wisdom and experience regarding self-compassion?
Yeah, maybe just what I'd like quickly touched on now is that like you can always be better, and you can always improve, but don't beat yourself up about it. Like if you feel like you haven't done well in a race, just be compassionate, be kind, look at the situation, write the things that went wrong, write the things that went right, and just try to focus on improving them, but improving them in a motivating, positive light and not in a beating up light.
Brilliant. That's lovely. So I think we're going to end that the interview on that note. If you would like to contact Cherie for any reason, what's the best way, Cherie, for them to contact you?
They can contact me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's all Cherie Redecker, and yeah, I'll get back to them as soon as I can.
Okay, wonderful. And if you'd like to contact me in order to get hold of Cherie, likewise, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or you can drop me an email on Cherie Forsyth, that's spelled CHERRIFORSYTH @gmail.com. As always, Cherie, I thank you for your valuable time and for agreeing to do this interview. Well done.
Thanks so much, Cherie. I'm really enjoying this month of being about self-compassion. It's came at a perfect time, and yeah, I'm looking forward to continue working on my own self-compassion.
Brilliant.